I grew up in Philadelphia my whole life. I still live in Philadelphia. I always wanted to be a police officer. My father was a police officer. Like Chris said, I have 3 brothers who are police officers. And I did it because I love to serve the community. I started out as a patrol officer in the southwest section of Philadelphia. I did that for about 4 years, and I ultimately ended up in the narcotics unit. And I worked there for several years, working lower to mid-level narcotic investigations. Ultimately, I was detailed to the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, which I received a lot more training, and we dealt with more mid to upper level drug investigations. That also included the Dr. Gosnell case. I'll try to give you a quick summary of what we did, and then we'll get on to the movie. It started out as a pill case. We were buying pills, as you all know, throughout this country, even today. The scourge of opioid addiction and overdose deaths. We're still fighting that. Well, back then it was real prevalent too, in 2009. And we had undercover officers making buys, which ultimately led up to Dr. Gosnell's office. He was a narcissist. I always referred to him as Hannibal Lecter-like. He had the God complex. He just thought that everything he decided to do was right. And one of those things, before we got involved in the abortion stuff that we didn't even know about, was distributing thousands of pills that were hitting the streets. And that's what led us to his office at first. We ended up grabbing one of the workers there. She gave us more information about what was going on inside that clinic, which included dirty instruments, blood on the floor, animals running throughout the facility, and stuff that we're like, no, this can't be true. And then she also told us about a woman that died in the facility. Ultimately, we investigated and found out who that woman was, and we ended up serving search warrants at the facility. There's so much more. I could go on for hours. I do present this case to police organizations, and there's just so much detail. As I'm giving the talk a lot of times, I just remember certain crazy things that went on during the course of this investigation. Gosnell employed people that were like puppets. He could control them, get them to do whatever he wanted them to do. Ultimately, we ended up having him arrested, charged, and convicted. But it took a long time. And some of the reason for that is the concept and the abortion word. Everybody sort of shudders when they hear the word abortion. And it shouldn't be that way. You should realize what it is. It's murder. And when you see this film, you're going to see, as I stated, there's no reason for not only Gosnell, but the other abortion doctors to do what they do. It's just ludicrous. And the funny thing about, if you could mention funny in abortion, but I don't like saying that, but, and I mentioned God in the very beginning, is this case started out as a drug case. We didn't know he was an abortion doctor right away. We were investigating him for drugs. We didn't find out until later on, and once we got in that facility, it's something that everyone in this room would be appalled by. It gave me great hope, though, once we brought all the evidence into a grand jury within the city of Philadelphia. The citizens saw what was going on, and they were appalled. They were so appalled, not only at Gosnell and his co-workers, which were indicted based on their having the case presented before them, they also wanted the Department of Health, the Pennsylvania Department of Health workers, arrested. They wanted the women that went to Gosnell for the late-term abortions arrested and charged with similar crimes. The District Attorney's Office of Philadelphia at the time did not pursue those charges. I believe they probably could have gotten convictions on them, but it was pretty much going after Gosnell at the time. But that's how incensed the people of Philadelphia were. And I'm sure it's like that all over, not just Philadelphia, it's in New York. When people actually see what goes on, they get an idea, and seeing is believing. And a lot of times people turn a blind eye to abortion, and it's a shame. But in this particular case, thank goodness, with the efforts of many people, it wasn't just me. I started the investigation, the FBI became involved, the DEA, and the FBI even wanted to pursue the case themselves. But again, with abortion and with a political hot potato of abortion, the investigation only went so far. We were able to get a search warrant, a federal search warrant for files that Gosnell was hiding. And after we served those search warrants, the federal investigation was stymied because of the political idea of abortion. So that's why it got bounced back to the locals in Philadelphia. And again, the people, I have to give them a lot of credit, because if it wasn't for the people of Philadelphia indicting Gosnell on those charges, he would be just another murderer who got away with it. And I hear stories all the time. Chris was telling me earlier, there was a story of an abortion doctor up here in New York, and I'm sure there's many others that, because they have that God complex, because they believe what they're doing is right, get away with murder every day. And it's a shame. So I'll take any questions. Chris, did you want to do questions now? Or
He's upstairs.
okay. So I try to ram that through. Usually I have a PowerPoint, and I know there's so much to this case. And again, I'm speaking from my own personal feelings about abortion. I grew up Catholic. I had a great mother and father, great teachers, and I believe in doing the right thing, and I follow the Holy Spirit, which leads me in directions that I believe are the right choices. So I know we're all looking forward to seeing the movie. I've seen it 3 times, and I love it. I hope you have some tissues, because it is tender. There's tender scenes in there, and I think it'll tug at your heartstrings. So, anybody have any questions?
Jim, how long did the trial last, and did Gosnell mount any kind of legal defense?
Yes, he did. Gosnell, the trial lasted about 3 weeks. Gosnell actually owned the property down the Jersey Shore that he gave to his defense attorney as payment.
And what was his defense?
His defense was that he was, as I explained, he had the God complex, and he thought what he was doing was the right thing. And he didn't think that what he was doing was any different from regular abortionists.
This case was, I didn't read about it, but it was very bad. It was like over the top nuts. Supposedly he killed so many babies pre-born, some of them after they were born. I'm just wondering, can the Supreme Court or the highest court of the land like use this and document this as like how bad it could get? And it's a shame that it took something like that for it to be spotlighted for us pro-lifers. But what I'm saying is, can you think, you're not a lawyer probably, but could the Supreme Court actually document this and say, this is why we have to throw it back to the states? And this doctor, so-called doctor, this, whatever you want to call him, he's in jail for the rest of his life, I hope?
Yes, three life terms, and it's a great question. So there were legal moves made within the abortion, where they were doing abortions in these medical facilities. They became much more stringent all over the country. So there were, and it is documented. The problem is everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, because we have great people like Chris and everybody involved in the pro-life movement who fight as hard as they can, but sometimes it goes on deaf ears. And that's one of the reasons we're trying to promote this movie, because I believe truly in my heart that when people see this movie, they're going to understand and really see what happens involving abortion. And that's what we need to do. We need to get the word out. Yes.
Quick question, are they gonna run trailers for this on TV?
There's trailers online. If you go to gosnellmovie.com, you can see a trailer for the movie.
It should be on TV also.
It has been on some of the stations. Obviously, it's not going to be on your mainstream media stations, but it is on some of the more conservative stations. Okay. But that's one of the biggest problems, getting the word out.
Yeah, I thought I heard that there were problems getting, the movie was made about 3 or 4 years ago, but there were problems finding somebody who...
Yes, that's so. Early on, there was a picture that made international news. A local reporter in Philadelphia, suburban county, Bucks County, shot a picture of the courtroom, and there was one person in the back of the courtroom. All the other seats were empty. Nobody wanted to cover it, and it continues to this day. Planned Parenthood is a big industry, and they have a lot of money, and they can do a lot of things to prevent the real truth to get out there. There was a problem finding a distributor for the movie in Hollywood. Apparently, the movie was reviewed and got great reviews. However, they couldn't get a distributor because of the content of abortion.
Fox News, are they gonna run trailers?
Yes, Fox News ran a trailer and ran some commercials.
I have a question.
Sure.
I was wondering, maybe the movie will reveal this, but what was his funding? Did he work for Planned Parenthood? Where did he how was he paid? Because he was obviously working on, people who from a lower socioeconomic. What was his payment that he could buy a home on the Jersey Shore?
So his payment, he initially was doing abortions. He didn't get into the drug dealing industry until later, and that's what got him caught. So the drug dealing, I was explaining to Chris earlier, he was writing about 200 prescriptions for opioids a night. And he would take those patients in as patients. That's where he was getting the money from the drug end of it. But those patients were sort of like ghost patients. The sponsors, people we called the sponsors, would come in and take those prescriptions, go on the street, and sell the pills. Now, to give you an idea of the pills, back then it was 60 oxycodone 80 milligram pills, and in Philadelphia, street value would be $60 a pill. So if you sold that whole prescription individually, you're talking about a profit of $3,600. And that's one of the reasons today the industry is still prolific, the opioids, because there's so much money can be made on the street with that in a short period of time.
So, excuse me, I have a follow-on question. So he wasn't really an abortionist? These women just, what? I don't get this.
That was just a second part of his industry, his drug dealing. He wasn't really even an abortion doctor. He was a medical doctor, but he put himself out there as an abortion doctor. And there's also a book about this. The movie doesn't tell everything that went on. There's a book with the same name. The book is very more descriptive, and it goes into more detail about how he proliferated for so many years.
Yeah, I thought I heard his license was suspended or revoked.
It was,
Okay.
shortly after we arrested him, yes.
Oh, I thought it was before.
I'm sorry, shortly after we served the search warrants. 3 days later, we got his license.
Okay.
Can I just ask, is there going to be a Q&A afterwards?
I am not sure. I didn't talk to, but I'll gladly do, I'll gladly stay as long as I can. For everybody here who missed some of the information that we got, or after you see the movie, if you have questions, absolutely, I'll
Okay,
stay.
so there's 4 more minutes, I guess. I think what Chris meant was a Q&A after
Okay.
after you speak, so
Or
I
maybe
think you're
Chris-
already doing it.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I understand if people have questions, and a lot of times
Yeah.
when I do this, you can come up to me individually too, any questions you have. It's, I did the Hollywood premiere in LA a few days ago. That was awesome. I hung out with Dean Cain and a lot of the other actors that were there. And I had people coming up to me, so excited, and it was heartfelt.
So the movie's an hour and a half, 7:30 to 7 to 8:30, and there will be a half an hour. This closes down at 9.
Okay.
So there probably will be that half hour.
Okay,
I'm assuming.
that's perfect. And like I said, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to answer them.
I hope that Attorney General Shapiro goes after, but it seems like he was more interested in the sex abuse.
He's saying he hopes the Attorney General will go
Shapiro.
after,
Chris,
more abortion
when you
issues,
I'll go up.
rather than the sex abuse in the church. And I believe this case, especially in the Catholic Church, which I'm a member of in the Archdiocese of Philadelphia, it will shed a light on more of the abortion industry, which it should. I mean, there's so many people that are pro-life, and I think that the pro-abortion people get more of the word out, and then one of the reasons is the mainstream media, Planned Parenthood, and the money that they have.
I have a question. Do you think that the legal and the medical establishment in our big cities are going to take a closer look at the operating practices of abortion clinics because of this case?
I would say yes, and there was a question, I don't think you were here earlier, Chris, about the legalities changing, and they already have, but it's not enough. We have to keep pushing. And I was watching an interview with one of the Fox hosts not too long ago, and she brought up an interesting point to Lindsey Graham and about the whole Kavanaugh thing, and is Kavanaugh going to overturn Roe versus Wade? And he said he didn't think that may not happen. And she followed up with a question, well, with the technology that we have today, with ultrasounds and just being able to see and understand the pain that the baby feels, that the pro-abortion people just ignore. I thought that was a great question, because it is true. With the technology that we have, and the technology that's saving babies at 1 pound, 1.5 pounds, it's clear that they're viable if that's the choice that they want to use. I believe, obviously, in conception. However, the fight is the viability to some people. And with the technology we have today, I really believe that it's going to start to turn our way finally.
Another question. Do you think that the very difficult time that Gosnell had getting this film into the major cities was a coordinated effort by the theaters or the politicians to black this film out?
I think you answered that.
I believe it was. And not only that, one of the main things we forget, we always look at the human side and the money side, but you also have the diabolicalness of the devil. And that's what we have to overcome. And you can do it with prayers. And God always wins in the end. So yes, that is true, that they do try to anything they can to stop us getting the word out. And we just, again, as an individual, you have the responsibility to spread the news and let people know the truth.